Hello everyone. This is the third revision lecture of Public International Law. In this video, we'll be discussing the relation of international law and municipal law. International law has a very complex and uneasy relationship with the domestic law of a country. The two systems are usually understood as two distinct legal systems of rules and principles. So, to understand the relationship between these two principles, these two systems, the first thing which we have to study is what is international law or municipal law. So, international law is that law which deals with the relationship between international personalities, that is, between different nations, different multinational corporations, or different regional bodies. While municipal law is local law of a country. So, the municipal law regulate the conduct or a behavior of a citizen of a country. So it is only local in nature, while international law is international in nature. Apparently, it might be looking that there is hardly any relationship between the two systems as they are applied distinctly to their subjects by different courts. But it is not so. The problem of relationship between the rules of international law and municipal law is one of the most controversial question in legal theory. Originally, the relationship between the two laws was matter of theoretical importance, but at present, the question has acquired practical significance as well. In almost every case, in a municipal court in which a rule of international law is asserted to govern, the decision raises the problem. For instance, diplomatic immunities granted by the international law would become meaningless unless they are recognized by the municipal law. Further, the customary rules of extradition are interpreted and applied by municipal courts only. The question of relationship of two systems has acquired importance in modern international law also because of large part paid indirectly or directly by the municipal courts in the activities of individual citizens. So therefore there are certain theories which regulate this relationship or which propound that how these relationships should be governed. Of major the prominent of those theories are dualistic theory, monistic theory, transformation theory, delegation theory, and harmonization theory. Now, as per dualistic theory, these two systems are completely independent and different from each other. While municipal law regulates the municipal affairs of a country, international law is a different system which regulates the international affairs or relationship between international personalities. As per Anzilotti, there is difference between fundamental principles of international law and municipal law. And why they are different? As per the dualistic theory, because they have different sources, different subjects, different principles, and different dynamism. For example, if we talk about subjects, in international law, subjects are different countries, while in municipal law, subjects are citizens of the countries. So, as per dualistic theory, both these systems are different. But as per monistic theory, international law is not distinct or autonomous body of law, rather there exists only one set of legal system, that is domestic legal order. Exponents of the theory are Professor Hanse Kelsen, Wright, Dugit, Stark. According to Stark, international law and state law are two branches of a unified knowledge of law. So, as per monastic theory, there are no two different systems and only one system, that is domestic legal order. And in domestic legal order, both municipal law as well as international law are combined and applied for solving the problems of the citizens. Now, transformation theory. Now, as per the transformation theory, no rules of international law are applicable in the municipal law by itself. So, to implement international law in a municipal in a domestic law, the government has to implement that. If government is not implementing any international law by any positive act, then that international law will not be applicable in the municipal law. The fourth is delegation theory. This theory postulates that there is delegation of rights to each state constitution by the rules of international law called constitutional rules of international treaties. So, as per delegation theory, whenever a convention or treaty is signed between different nations at the international level, then that convention or treaty delegates the power to implement that convention or treaty upon the signing state. Now it is the responsibility of that signing state that it has to implement that international law through some positive act. By positive act, I mean maybe through parliamentary act or any state act. The fifth theory is harmonization theory. According to this theory, neither municipal law nor international law has a supreme has a supremacy to each other, and they are made to solve problems of human. If there is any contradiction appears, they are required to be harmonized. Now, question arises that how should they be harmonized if they are apparently contradictory? So, the judges of municipal as well as international forums should aim at harmonizing the system rather than to treat one system superior to others. This harmonization of rules can be made in two ways. First, it is duty of the judge to eliminate contradiction by their juristic reasoning. Second, enactments in the municipal legal systems of the state should be made to avoid contradiction. Now, in our syllabus, we have to study two different countries as state practice, as how they implement international law in the municipal sphere. The first country is England. In England, the current practice is that the rules of customary international law are part of the land law, that is the domestic law, and will be applied as such by the municipal courts subject to the following qualification. The first qualification is customary rules will be applied by the British courts if it has attained the position of general acceptance. So it has to be in the position of general acceptance to any international law has to be in the position of general acceptance to be applied by the British courts. The second is the rules should not be inconsistent with the provisions of British statute law. This is very important. If they are in direct contradiction with any local law, if any international law is in direct contradiction with any local law, then that will not be applicable in the domestic law. All right. So, if some international treaty is breaking some local law of England, then that will not be applicable in England. The third is once the scope of customary laws is determined by final authority, then all British courts are bound by them. All right. So if any higher court says that this international law will be applicable in local law, then the question will not arise and local courts have to follow that international law if any higher authority says that. Now let's come to India. In India, let's first discuss two articles. The first is 51C. The article 51C provides that the state shall endeavor to foster respect for international law and treaty obligations in the dealings of organized people with one another. This article is kept in part 4 of the this article is kept in part 4 of the constitution, which means that it shall be duty of the state to apply this principle in making law. What is part 4 of the constitution? Directive principles of state policy. Now, directive principles of state policy is a direction is a directive given to the state so that the state could follow these things. If you go to court to get it implemented, it will not be implemented, but states are a sort of morally bound to follow these articles, which is article from article 36 to article 51A. Now, article 371 of the constitution provides that all the laws in force of this on the territory of India immediately before the commencement of this constitution shall continue in force until altered or repealed. So the previous practice that customary rules of international law becoming part of Indian law of the land is still applies in India. All right. So even if some customary law was applicable to India before the independence of India, then it will be applicable in India, applicable to India even after independence because of Article 371. Now, as far as the treaties are concerned, the executive of India is having power to bind India into treaties as given by the provisions of the Constitution of India. Now, the parliament has no share in treaty making because treaties are signed by executive. Parliament is not going to sign any treaty. Na? Treaties are signed by executive, and who are executive? The president or maybe the prime minister. But as per Article 153, the power is given to the parliament to make any law for whole or any part of the country, to implement any treaty, agreement, or convention. So, the judiciary of India gave the judgment that treaties which involve cession of Indian territory or affecting private rights of the citizens must be enacted by legislation to become enforceable. All right. So, as per Article 253, Parliament is empowered to make any law so that any international treaty are implemented in India. But that treaty, if it involves cession of Indian territory or affects the private right of citizens, then it has to be enacted by the Parliament through any legislation, as per Article 253. Now, some important cases. First case is ADM Jabalpur. In ADM Jabalpur versus Shukla, Justice H.R. Khanna, in his dissenting opinion, held likewise by stating that if there is a conflict between international law and municipal law, the courts will give municipal law importance. Okay. So in Justice ADM Jabalpur, in ADM Jabalpur versus Shivkant Shukla, Justice HR Khanna gave dissenting opinion that if there is a contradiction, then international law will be applicable in Indian law. In another case of Gramophone Corporation of India, Justice ADM Jabalpur was very important case. It was a case which actually is criticized till date. This judgment was given during the emergency period, and all the preventive detentions and all the arrests were made legal through this case. So you all should must study this case also. Now the next case is Gramophone Corporation of India versus Birendra Bahadur Pandey. Now in this case, the observation of Supreme Courts which relates to the binding force of customary rules of international law. In this case, it was made clear that Indian courts shall apply customary international law in India to the extent they are not inconsistent with the municipal laws. This position is same with as the England. If international law is not in contradiction with municipal law, then they can be implemented in India. This was held in Gramophone Corporation of India versus Brind Bahadur Pandey. The next case is Vellore Citizens Welfare Forum versus Union of India. In this case, precautionary principle and polluter pays principle and precautionary principle was made part of environmental law of the country because uh, it was already there in international law. So in this case, some positive international law, some international law was made part of local law through the courts. The next case is uh, People's Union for Civil Liberties and Union of India. In this case, also again, Supreme Court held that if there is not no apparent contradiction between international law and in local law, then that law can be implemented in India. Now, in Jolly Varghese case, also the same thing was held in Chairman Railway Board versus Chandrima Das. Also, the same thing was held. This case is very important. The Chairman Railway Board versus Chandrima Das, as far as Article 21 is concerned. In this case, a compensation was paid to a raped woman of Bangladesh. So it was held that the Indian law is also applicable for a foreign citizen, for a citizen of Bangladesh, if they are, if anything, if any wrong thing is happening with them in the territory of India. All right. Thank you.